Hi, this is Arna from the TARS team, and today I want to briefly discuss how user input acknowledgement can be used to improve the user experience of your chatbot and deliver a higher conversion rate. And to begin with, let's define the term because it's probably a new term for a lot of you. User input acknowledgement sounds jargony, but it's actually something we're all familiar with. It's essentially the characteristic of a chatbot or behavior that we try to incorporate in a chatbot where it will acknowledge a user's input before continuing on with the conversation. And it's something that we've transferred over from human conversations. When someone sends you a joke over text message, you usually respond with something like LOL or haha before saying something else to continue the conversation. And that's an example of user input acknowledgement. In the context of your lead generation chatbots, a great example is what you're seeing on your screen right now. We have a conversational landing page demo open from Quicken Loans. If I hit the get a quote button, the chatbot is going to say, great, let's get started. Let's start with an easy question before asking me the first question in the lead generation flow. These two messages over here are great examples of user input acknowledgement because the chatbot is sending me a few filler messages to acknowledge the fact that it has received my input before asking me a question to drive the conversation forward. And it's important that you incorporate this sort of behavior in your chatbot lead generation flows because it makes the chatbot feel more human. One of the main reasons that chatbots are more effective than forms for lead generation is because they transform a one-way impersonal interaction like form filling into a two-way interaction where the prospect feels like there's someone on the other end actually taking out the time to listen to them and take down their information. And the key to making that experience feel authentic is to incorporate features that you think or incorporate characteristics that you think make the chatbot seem more human. And user input acknowledgement is a great way to do that because as I mentioned before, it's something that we do in our actual human conversations. Now, in terms of where you should actually implement user input acknowledgement and how you should go about doing it, the best advice I can give you is to just put yourself in the chatbot's shoes and think about what you would say in its position. How would you acknowledge the input that the prospect has just sent you? If they just sent you their name, what would you say before asking the next question? That's probably a good bet for what your chatbot should say to acknowledge the user's input in any particular context. Once you've used that approach a couple of times and built a couple of chatbots, you'll start to notice a set of patterns in the way that you acknowledge user input, and you can use that set of patterns as guidelines for how you approach user input acknowledgement across your chatbot conversations. So, for example, in my case, I have noticed that there are at least three rules that I use whenever I'm acknowledging user input. The first one is something that you saw before. Whenever the user or the prospect gives me their name, I like to say nice to meet you and then their name because it feels polite. Another rule that I've noticed about the way I acknowledge a user input is in particularly long lead generation processes. So, for example, in the case of mortgage, where you're asking for a lot of details in one go, I like to use the input acknowledgement message to prime users for what messages are going to come so that they don't feel like this is just going to be a never ending series of questions. Over here, for example, I'm telling them that I need to know a few details about the home that they want to buy before I can schedule them in for a quote or before I can give them a quote. And that just sort of primes them for what questions I'm going to ask them in the next few messages. And it's a great way to sort of break the monotony of continuous question asking in a row. It makes the chatbot feel a lot, it makes the conversation feel a lot less like an interrogation and more like a personal customer service experience. And finally, the last rule that I've noticed about the way I acknowledge user input is that I find that the short user input acknowledgement is better than no user input acknowledgement. So a great example of this over here is the prospect said that they want to buy the house right away, and the chatbot says noted before asking the next question. Now, it could have very easily just asked the next question over here, but I find that even a small bit of user acknowledgement in situations like this goes a long way in making the chatbot feel a little bit more human than having no user input acknowledgement at all. So that's pretty much it If you have any questions for us, feel free to reach out to us on Intercom. If you sign in to the builder and open up one of your chatbots, open up the conversational flow wherever you're building it, you will notice that we have an Intercom widget in the bottom right of our page. Click on that and start a conversation. One of our customer support representatives will be more than happy to walk you through any doubts that you have and make suggestions on how you can improve the conversion rate of your chatbot. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.